I've got a little method for turning a freshly sawn curved piece of wood like this piece of mahogany into this beautiful sculptural contemporary leg, which could go on a very simple base stand like this or a table, a small table. You want to see that? Stick around. All right, welcome back and welcome to the shop here in beautiful downtown Canterbury, New Hampshire. Shop Night Live, I'm Tom McLaughlin, and there's the camera lady behind the camera. And tonight I wanted to share with you a little extension from what we talked about last week. Last time we notched this leg for one of the simplest, most effective ways of making a quick table. Now, it's got some strength questions or limitations because it is simply a notched joint. It's just a dado across the leg, which bites over the panel here, which could be your top. But you can see I also added a recess here. So what you end up with is a bridle-like joint that intersects. Now I can't fit this piece on, but here's how the finished look is. So this leg comes in and it sits in that added notch to give it strength from this direction. So a really great little solid table for what it is, but this is actually made to be a base for this little cabinet that I'll show you more later. But let's stay focused on the table. Now, some of you may be curious how those legs stay on. Well, yes, they are actually secured with a singular screw that comes in from underneath. And these little triangular pocket holes I like to cut with a simple chisel. And all you need is a single screw that will go in here and pull it in. Now, if I would normally glue this up. It's nice to have the screw anyway, but you could also just glue it up and it'd be quite a strong joint as well. But that just gives you a little added mechanical pull in there. I'm gonna leave it unglued and break it down and ship it out to my son, who's gonna be surprised to get this. I'm not worried about him watching tonight. I think he's got better things to do, but he might think twice when he sees this. All right, so what I want to do is show you how I went from the simple sawn out leg. Let me set this down so I don't break it. And I'll talk a little about the finish too when we get there. But just to go from this sawn out leg to this shaped leg. Now you might have picked it up, but look at that soft little doming on the top of the leg. And then look at how each side is rounded. Now, some of you have seen this before, and some of you are actually pillowing freaks and like putting it on a lot of your work. And I love it, as you know. It just gives a flat surface a kind of organic, come alive nature. You know, it's just very few flat surfaces in nature occur, you know, so why not put a little more sculpturing to it? And that's what I want to show you now. We're going to add that little pillowing. And notice these were sawn out actually from the same dimension of wood, but the pillowing takes it, see how they're the same thickness in both dimensions, but the pillowing takes a dimension off of it because we're rounding it, and it gives it the appearance of being quite a bit lighter. So whenever you're going to pillow a part like this, you want to start with it visually heavier than you might want. You might have noticed last time if you watched when I put this together and it was all just these, it looked a little chunky, but I forgot to mention that. But they do not after they're sculpted. So let's go ahead and sculpt one of these bad boys. Now, whenever you saw curves, queen Anne and whatnot, it's a good idea to save your cutoffs because they help with clamping into flat jaws. It gives you your own little custom bite. So I'm just going to clean up the bandsaw roughness first. And here's my outside cutoff. I'll just set it there. And then the inside, it's this one. So I got to flip it around. And I'll just set those down a little bit into the vise and then get a little bite on it. Okay? So now I'm going to need my handy dandy spoke shave. And we'll come in from the end. This is just like a flat plane with a very short mouth.
Tony was commenting on how the grain flows with the curve. I know you mentioned that last week. And by the way, if you didn't see last week's episode, it's in the description below. Link to that.
Yeah, you can see it on this leg. See that? Can you see it in the camera?
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. So you try to work that out. Yeah. Yeah, this is a bit of a continuation. I didn't mean it for that, but I just wanted to show you some of the highlights of this project. And shaping these legs is one of the real key elements. So the spoke shave just helps me smooth out any bumps and the rough surface from the bandsaw. Now I can flip it over and set these back the other way and get another bite on it this way. I'm just going to come from this direction. That's nice. Now I'm going to pillow this, so I could leave it just like this, but sometimes I like to card scrape that surface, just to give it a little more cleaning if you're not quite flat. Now I already did the other two sides just like that. And what you end up with is this nice, clean, but 90-degree cornered curve. So we want to turn it into the pillowed surface. So to do that, let's see, I need a decent pencil. I'm going to use this one that's already attached to my special jig, but it doesn't matter. So the first thing we do is we want to find the center line, which I'll just kind of indicate eyeballing it. And then I'm going to come down and sweep my hand around to meet just like that. Close enough, right? Then we'll come over here, same thing. Now we're not going to try to take too much off here, but if we do a little, it's okay because we can adjust that second notch. I waited until these were pillowed before I cut that second notch into the top panel. So I'll just hit here, center, and sweep. Isn't that nice? It's therapeutic. If something's bothering you, nothing can bother you after this.
Patience of Job, Tom.
Yeah, low bar here. All right, so there, we get all our centers marked, and now we can start to mark our pillowed surfaces. Now, I wanted to just address the top. That was just bandsawn. You can see it's still rough. That's the kind of thing you can actually do with a sander. So a little belt sander here. If you want to be real careful with the belt sander, you don't turn it on and you just pull it like this. Okay, it's just a sanding plate in that way. But I'm not getting real far. Just got to be careful with these things because they can do a lot of, I won't say damage, but yeah, it could do damage. All right, here we go. All right, so check that out. That's it. I kept it rolling, so I kept that kind of curvature on the top too. All right. Watch yourself, watch it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, you gotcha.
That would have been
You should run
good
into the
warning.
pen. All right, so now what we want to do is set our pillowing guide. And to do that, I want to take this surface and round it down slightly in each direction. But how far should I round down? Well, it's almost an eighth of an inch, but not quite, between a 16th and an eighth. So I just pinch with my finger. I'm going to put it at about an eighth. We'll go a little heavier here, and I'll just go to the line. So that shows me how far I'm going to round over. Then I'll come over this side, and this gives me the same in the other direction. Okay. Then I'll do the same on the opposite side. And take it right on. So this is, again, pillowing this, and then up here we pillow this top section. These are kind of fun because they're not huge and you can knock them out fairly fast. It's not too tedious. Good exercise. But we're going to bring in our cutoff for this side, and I can tell because of the notch, and this little other one here, and we'll get it into the vise. Is that good? All right, that feels good. All right, so now I'm gonna stand right aligned, and we're gonna hold the spoke shape now at a skewed angle and work that corner. See that little curl coming off? Mm-hmm. Okay, so now we'll just go kind of, you can go kind of fast here because you're just going to the line. That's why you made it. So it would save you some time and you'd know where to stop. I'm doing the same on this side. You don't have to come over. It's the same type of line. I got so many shadows from this light. All right, but once I've got that facet, now I'm going to flatten out the spoke shape a little bit and take off that facet. And this is kind of fun. You get a pretty good feel for it rapidly, as some who are watching might attest. We use this technique in the round chair course and also in the modern writing desk. All right, you see I'm getting a little tear out there. Means the grain is shifting on me. So at the top I could come this way if I wanted to. Now this is genuine mahogany, which is quite pleasant to work. It's very agreeable and got a great texture. But the grain can reverse sometimes right in the middle, almost inexplicably. All right, so up here, we'll do the same. Just this little kind of where the leg curves back. I'll go right down to the line again. Now I'm going to just flatten out.
So Tom, with that comment in mind.
Which comment?
About the mahogany.
Yeah.
How do you find the hand workability with hand tools like this of mahogany versus sapele, African mahogany?
Yeah,
Sippo?
sapele and African mahogany, similar but not as nice. African mahogany has a little bit more of a kind of coarse texture. I don't know how to explain it other than once you feel it, you'll know. Like if you worked with genuine mahogany, it has a nice kind of firm texture, but it's not as kind of grainy. Like that African can feel a little more, what am I trying to think of? Coarse grained. I don't know how to explain it. All right, now I'm a little bit faceted here, but so I'm going to smooth that out now with a number 50 Nicholson rasp. And don't worry about a little bit of scratches. Those will come out very fast with this filing method. I do want to say too, other woods like you mentioned there, sapele, that's a bit harder than genuine mahogany, and so that's going to work a little harder, and that's got a very similar grain to regular quarter sawn mahogany. It has that stripy grain reversing, so it can be a little tough, And again, it's got a little more coarse texture to it than genuine mahogany does. But there's some mahogany I've worked over the years that was so nice. It's like the best tender prime rib, or or filet mignon. When you work it, it's so nice. Whereas others can be a bit like a tough steak, right? But the reward is great, with nice wood too. Sometimes you work with harder wood, more difficult, because the reward at the end is worth it, But not all woods are friendly to handwork. Some have
You
their
just
challenges.
changed files.
Yeah, so I just switched to this little 8-inch, what do we call this one?
The Swiss file pattern.
Yeah, Swiss pattern file, and it's got a flat surface on these sides and then the rounded. I don't use the rounded a heck of a lot. I'm on the flat a lot here because we're doing a convex shape, and that just smooths it out. And then you can go to the finer side, and that takes out a little bit of that.
You haven't used the 49 in this instance, have you? Only the
No, I didn't need the 49. That was a little too coarse because I was already pretty close. So now I can feel that, and it's getting refined, but I've left it at that file scratching. So this is a good time for your card scraper. And this saves you a lot of time sanding. It's that little hook, as you know. You can feel it going into the grain down there. You can probably hear it too. And then up here, I'll just do these little hits. So then when I get to this point, I've got some sandpaper in here. I've got 220 on there. Sometimes I'll start with 150, but this will be good. Here we go. That's nice. One thing I like about this joint is you don't have to worry about this surface getting rounded and messing up the fit because it's biting over the wood. So the result is this nice curved look. So if you look at the top of this leg, when it bites over, you end up with this sweet radius right there. It gives it a more complex joint look, but it's really a fairly simple bridle joint bite right over a flat piece of wood. So once you've got that, then you'll flip and hit the other side. Let's just do a little more of this. And this one's now the concave. And then I'll show you, we'll talk a little bit about finish because the rest of it is similar. I'll show you a touch on the top too, because that was fun. Get nice. Get this set. Okay. Again, I'll go a little faster this time. So hard to see. Oh, nice. And then hit those facets.
It's just an extra leg, huh?
Yeah, just an extra. I made it for you.
Thanks. I'm going to do some meat tenderizing with that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, you know, if you work one out like this, you end up having a pattern that you can put in your attic.
Oh, now that
You know what I
warms
mean?
me right to the core.
All right, so I've got it faceted. Here we go. The Nicholson rasp. round that right over. Boy, we had a big day today. We went down to Lowell, Mass, and where the Lowell Police Department did a tribute to my grandfather, who some of you may know was killed on duty in 1957. Unsolved mystery. He was doing like a stakeout in an abandoned tannery, and he was found dead after he hadn't reported in a couple hours. So really sad for my family, my mother, and I was not yet born, but they did a special sign, this new thing, Heroes, and put up a commemorative sign, unveiled it at the location where the tannery used to be. And anyway, it was really moving and, surprising way, and meant a lot to us and our family. 21 grandchildren that he never got to know, but I had the honor and privilege of saying a few words on behalf of all the grandchildren, and especially because I have my grandfather's plane up here. This is the number 7 joiner plane that was his, and my mother passed it on to me, and that has a lot of special meaning to me. So he was a fine Finnish carpenter before he joined the police force, and he was with the police force for like 17 years. And that happened when he was 53 years old. So pretty sad in our family, but nice to bring it all around and have that moment. So once you've got the legs all sculpted, once I've got that one spoke shaved, I would sand it again. Let's just do that for fun. All right, and there you have it. Now you can see the top. If you look, see that great curve? I've got to work this side just a little bit more, but you can see how nice that changes everything. You get this nice rounded or pillowed surface. Now, look how much narrower that surface looks after it's been pillowed. But then this one, now we'll just carry our lines over to this side. You do the same. And you work kind of opposite sides because the pillowing would take away the lines of these adjacent sides. So you just mark opposite sides like that to start. They would go like that. And we treat these the same way, nicely radiusing. Now the top, you can see, is also pillowed or domed, you might call it. So we already gave it that soft radius this way, but all around, what I ended up doing was just marking the center like this. Again, just eyeballing it once it's done. I'm not done. I would do all the sides first. And then I'd come around the sides in the same way we did the edges. So we're just going to be giving it a line like this. Now, once this is pillowed, this line drops down a little bit. So it's got a little more radius to it. But you're just going to use the same cutoffs, and you can get it into the vise again. I'll just do a very quick bit of this so we can talk a little finish. And get it bit in there. And again, you're going to come on the edges here. So I'm holding it in a skewed way, so I try not to break out that corner. It's coming this way.
I had a question about skewing that.
What's that? Skewing the spoke shave?
Vincent asked, do you usually skew the spoke shave and why?
Where I can, where I have a flat enough surface, because when you skew it, it has a bit, like you double the kind of planing motion, because the sole of a spoke shave is very short. So if you keep it perpendicular, it's like a short body plane. It's going to follow whatever irregularity's on. The longer the plane, like my grandfather's number 7, that's a truing plane. It takes off the high surfaces. It skims along and straightens. So the longer the surface, the more it kind of trues the surface as well. So by angling your spoke shave, you've kind of lengthened the sole that's resting on the wood. And you also get a little bit of a shearing cut with the blade, but I'm doing it more for the kind of smoothing action. But either one is worthy. So again, I would just come around the top here like this, and I get down to my lines, right? You take your time here. Sometimes I'm trying to rush and I end up looking like I don't care, but I really do care. I care deeply.
Oh, we know.
I care too much. All right, so then we go like that. And now, again, we would do the same. So I start to flatten it out. So I'm just going to work in across that one dimension. This here, I'm skewing it to get, well, again, it's more of a shearing cut rather than coming right across. See the difference? It wants to skip. This way, I'm getting more of a peeling. See how they're spiraled? Because I'm shearing like that, and I just can get a better cut. Here I'm going kind of into the grain. I'll do it so you can see it. And come back this way. And we're working toward the middle, but we don't have to be perfect. And then we're going to come over here. Did I just say that? We don't have to be perfect. We have to be perfect. All right, and then lay it lower again. And we create just in the sequence. Now we've roughed out and created this all kind of leading up to the center from that faceted edge. And again, you'll come in with your rasp. And this is fun. You're just kind of finishing the doming. Now you might say, hey, I could do that on my flat belt sander. Well, go for it. It's very hard to get a quality result. I mean, maybe if you had hours and hours and repetition, you could do it pretty well, but it's blind, you know, you're just kind of feeling around. And I've done this on times when I don't care about exactly how it looks, but here you want some uniformity and a pleasing look to the top of it. So you get the idea. I would go to this, then I go to the finer file, card scrape, and then palm sand again. I'm not going to go all the way, but file, card scrape, sand. Just using these tools as if you're going through the sanding grits from coarse grit to finer, okay? Now, once you've done that, it'll sand up just like that dome, okay? And you'd have all 4 sides rounded.
You promise?
I promise. It happens. And what's cool about it is when you're doing this, you're going to be doing 4 legs. So you can take each one through that sequence and then not all the way, but just do like all the tops at one time. And that way you get kind of muscle memory and get a nice uniform result. But once you got that, now let's pop it on here. I'll talk about finish in a second. What do you think of those who were here last week? We debated, this is actually Douglas fir. There are 184 growth rings on this Douglas, 185 actually, and that wasn't the whole tree. But this is a nice strong table. I actually stood on it. So I tested it. I did it I'm not going to do it now because
course
that's
you
fairly
did.
fresh.
Of course you did.
But wouldn't you wonder if that would hold, right?
You needed to have us filming that in case
I
there was
know.
a moment.
That was before I put finish on it. I don't, but it is really strong. But that's a shorter leg. If you did this, you could do this in a coffee table. Wouldn't that be kind of a cool coffee table of some size?
It's like a nice fancy stool.
Yeah, what else? Think about this. This type of leg attachment is not limited to like 90 degrees. So it doesn't have to bite on 90. You could have a little flat area on what would then be cut round. So this leg works on any kind of shaped top. You could have a three-sided, but I would cut that shape after you get all your joinery in, right? So you're going to cut that little flat. You get your little bridle joint going there. Everything's done. Then cut your shape. Undercut the edge, whatever you want. But here, I don't even need to put the screws in because it's strong enough for this. Here I was building it just to get a little 8-inch high stand for this little music tech cabinet, right? And you can see how far along I've come. Look at the finish. Whoa. That's the slide out. That isn't quite, I got to put some stops in there, but I'm going to take that out so I don't lose it. But the finish, can you see how nice that looks?
Yes.
Does it look good?
Gorgeous, yes.
Isn't it sweet, the way that grain rolls? This Cuban mahogany, this is the ribbon figure. It's just hard to beat. Look at that.
Yeah.
And you can see around the back, similar to last time. And I'll push the drawer out because I took the knob off, or the pull. And look, the drawer, I got some finish on it. That's a piece of veneered Cuban, same. And look how the dovetails really pop with the finish.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
That's the mahogany. And this is just a clear shellac. So someone asked the question, I think it was a couple weeks ago, about coloring your pins. The vast majority of times, I won't even try doing that. I just let the end grain darken them. And of course, we've got a dark wood with the mahogany, contrasted already with the white pine. But when you put that finish on and it goes into the end grain of the pins, they just pop with more contrast and you get that classic look. In the back here, you still get the contrast, even though it's just white pine coming through, and there's the white pine pins. Say that 10 times fast. All right, so this is that funky drawer that has the cutout for the wiring that he's going to use, the power. He's going to put his little power plug in here. All the wires come down and will be sent in from the back. That's why it's cut funny. But it'll get set up like that. There'll be trays. That top one will slide out. And then I'm going to put a couple little cork feet on here, just very thin, so that when it sits on here, it won't go wood to wood. But I'll just set it on here for now, just for a minute. And yeah, the cork feet will give it a little more bite. I was going to anchor it or have it attached some way, but I thought, it's not going to go anywhere. And with the maybe rubberized feet, a little thin, keep it from moving. It's actually quite secure off the side of his desk.
You said the black is ebonized, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I just ebonized that with a water-based ebony stain that I don't think they still sell it, but it was Shaker Workshop stain. We did a video one time about ebonizing wood, and I went through I think it was 4 or 5 approaches, and this was the winner. It's what I had. I got to find another source for it. If anyone knows, do you have a great black, ebonizing stain that's water-based that is similar to that Shaker Workshops that they used to sell? Or maybe they got back to selling it? But isn't that sweet? So this cabinet, how do you like the black? I like it because
I like it.
I was actually debating if it was going to be too contrasty, but I think he'll love it. It gives it a more contemporary look, doesn't it? And an original look. But here you got those legs sweeping away, almost presenting the stand, but also acting as a wider stance for the base, so it gives it a bit more stability in that way. And these, once I put the slide, I'll put this in just to give you the final look of it.
And folks are saying you're probably going to get other orders once his friends see this.
This is priceless. I would only do this for him. This is not, it's obviously a work, just a made-up thing, right?
I'm getting the question about India black ink or NRG dye. Are any of those?
Yeah, we used NGR, non-grain raising dye. We used that, a few different types of it in that video. We should put a link to that video if anybody wants to ebonize. And you'll see the source for that as well. And then here are the handles. I've already glued in the leather, but I just have to, I'll set these through these slots and they'll be pinned from the inside so that you'll be able to link them together with the magnets in that little locker, and it'll be lifted and taken away like that. Isn't that cool? Let's talk a little bit about color, because you see how those legs match pretty nicely, you think, with the Cuban?
Yes.
But they didn't initially. So this is one of the challenges sometimes you run into with all kinds of wood. But with mahogany, it can happen because sometimes you'll get a piece that's a little faster growing. This is the same material as these legs were made from. So it's just a little lighter, and I was afraid if I just put the shellac on direct, I'll show you in a second, it wasn't going to go dark enough. So I darkened this with that treatment, potassium dichromate. Now some of you, this raises eyebrows with some, because it is, they say it's carcinogenic. I don't want to get into all that right now. No.
Why would we care about that?
Check out if you want to go into it with potassium dichromate and all that. We did another video called Antiquing
Furniture, I think.
No, mahogany, antique finish on mahogany or whatever.
I can add that too.
On African mahogany, yeah.
Oh, we put that one in there.
Yeah, we linked to that one. So that shows making and using potassium dichromate. Now, potassium dichromate comes in a crystal form like this. This is what is most hazardous. You don't want to breathe in the powder. So I always wear a mask. I'm very careful when I use it. You wear gloves. And then you're going to apply it when it's in liquid form. I have some in here. So when it mixes up, you get a little bit of a orange tint. But what happens with potassium dichromate is you get a chemical reaction with, I believe it's the tannins in the mahogany. So we just put it on there. It's kind of orangey, but it goes on and it's chemically reacting right now. So you're not putting any color on the surface of the wood. You're actually transforming or dyeing. Well, you're not even dyeing the wood, really. You're changing the chemical relationships, and it is darkening naturally. Some people sell this type of thing as, they call it instant aging. But what happens is, so it's not just wet, it actually is getting darker. And the longer it sits on there, it'll darken that up nice. So I've already got another piece over here. And if you want to know, like I said, more about potassium dichromate and the safety of it, you got to really read the data sheets, follow everything. But it's a wonderful, it's hard to beat. I've done tests with other dyes, like using walnuts or reddish walnuts on mahogany. I just don't get the results. And that was sort of Pugmore's secret weapon. So some of you have seen that before, but there you go. Now, once it's dried, you'll end up with it looking like this. Look at the contrast. So I've got This is the potassium dichromate. Look how much darker that is. So that will dry out like that. Now I've got a little shellac in here, which is all I coated these with. I sprayed them with a couple coats of shellac, 2 or 3, I'm trying to remember, maybe 3 thin ones. And then I've got a coat of lacquer on there, which I'll tell you about in a second. Sometimes I just leave it shellac a lot, but I wanted to put a lacquer on it. So I'm going to use this. This has a little orange, this shellac in it. It's not pure orange. It's right between kind of clear and orange. But let's just get some on there so you can see what happens. All right. So if I just went with the shellac directly on this mahogany, I would have gotten something like that. It would have been kind of nice. But if we put it over next to the Cuban, look at what happens. It's a little too light, right? Where this has a nicer tone. So that's what we went with. So sometimes you got to tone other parts, like especially this lighter, softer wood. And that's what I went with. So I sprayed that with shellac. We ebonized this base. And then the main cabinet, I taped off the openings because I had pre-finished the inside. It was just too hard to get at, and it was going to be tough. So I actually had, without this, was taped to the front, right? I kind of made a mess of that. And kept the inside sealed off so I could spray without worrying about it. And got my couple coats of shellac, touched up little areas that needed issues. I slightly sanded through the veneer in a little bit on this corner, very hard not to. And I had a little whitening showing, so I used a touch-up marker right on the corner, and that just melted that right away. And then with more shellac, and then the lacquer, I just sprayed it from this can because I had it from the other day. We actually did a side-by-side comparison with Minwax and Watco. So that was just a few videos ago if you're interested in that. And we got a beautiful finish. So this is a satin. It has a nice sheen. And I don't know that I need to rub this out. I'm going to just very lightly rub it down. It laid out beautifully. It sprays great. The Minwax has a nice nozzle. And so we're almost done. We're going to just lock that in, put in our stops, little magnet stop for that. Let it dry, and we'll box it up and ship that bad boy out. Thank you so much again. And remember, if you like this content, please like, share, and subscribe. And check out Epic Woodworking at epicwoodworking.com for especially joining the neighborhood. That's where it all happens. Lots of great access to courses and all that other stuff. Like, we don't have this in the courses, but a lot of great ones over there. So thanks again for hanging out with us a little bit. On behalf of the camera lady and myself, we look forward to seeing you next time right back here on Shop Night Live. Sorry, that was a weird one.
It was like old. All right.
I was trying not to yell. Oh. You have that. Yeah.
All righty.
Good
Thanks,
night, everybody.
everybody. Good night. Have a good one.